Hello and welcome to today's video. I thought I would come on here and do the majority of the books that I read for the first 2 weeks of January. I'm keeping the 3 remaining books that I also read because I am moving at the end of the month and I'm not sure if I'm going to end up reading as much as I have so far at the beginning of half, right? So I thought, well, at least I'll have a couple of books to talk about if I don't end up finishing any books due to like moving and everything and the stress and excitement of that. So this isn't all the books that I completed in the first 2 weeks, but it's almost all the books. Anyway, I digress. Let's get started with a Christmas read. So that is The Christmas Book Club by Sarah Morgan. I had read one book by her before, which was The Christmas Sisters, and really loved it. And I've been keeping an eye on her books for a while, but I just haven't, I just haven't gone ahead and picked it up. But I don't know, I was inspired to pick this up on BookBeats. I think I listened to it on. So every year, 3 friends, Erica, Claudia and Anna, reunite for their book club holiday. This time they reserve a Christmas getaway at the cosy Maple Sugar Inn, where Hattie specialises in making her guests feel special. But all Hattie wants this Christmas is to survive the festive season. I thought this was such a delightful and wholesome read, which was the perfect start to 2024, honestly. It was just such a gentle story of friends and surprises, but nothing like too outstanding. It was just what I needed. It was such a beautiful book with distinct and complex family structures. The plot twist was expected, but it didn't take away the investment that I had in the characters' lives and the build up to the plot twist happening. I would have hoped for more diversity in this day and age. I feel like this, and if I can remember the book, The Christmas Sisters, they're all very like generically, you know, pale skin, blonde hair, that sort of thing. It's just not very culturally diverse, but I did give this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I finished 16 and Pregnant by Lala Thomas. I gave that one a 4 out of 5 stars. A novel that openly explores pregnancy through the eyes of 2 young black teens, Erica and Kelly, in modern day Nevada. The lives of Erica and Kelly felt so authentic, and it was super wholesome how they still supported each other. Even though they had very differing paths and outcomes, what they were hoping for in life, they were still like best friends through it all. You know, they bickered, they didn't see eye to eye all the time, but they were still there for each other. And it was such an inspiring read, really, to see how you can have very different lives, but, you know, very different opinions, but still have each other's back at the end of it. The parents didn't feel like murky 2D characters, rather they felt layered and very present in the lives of these teenagers, you know, and they aided in having alternative perspectives and different life experiences to the girls navigating their own lives. So yeah, I thought that was really well done. Next up, my first physical book that I finished for the month was The Cousins, which is by Karen M. McManus. I have a reading vlog where I think I started with this book, and I've talked a bit about the books continuing on, so definitely check that out if you're interested in more of the moment thoughts and feelings. But this one was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. I absolutely adored it. A little bit about the story is 24 years ago, the Story siblings were cut off and banished from their home by their mother, Mildred Story, with a single sentence: "You know what you did," telling them they could never return back to the family island ever again. Now estranged cousins Millie, Aubrey and Jonah are invited to work at the island resort for the summer, and the teenagers are determined to discover the truth of what happened 24 years ago to cause such a disruption within the family unit. This was so much fun. It was super twisty, and I loved the unraveling of corruption to deceit in this wealthy family drama. The storytelling was so Moorish. Every time I put it down, I could only think about this book. It just was addictive. The ending was very satisfying with the perfect amount of just dashed in at the very end to keep me thinking about it after I was done. I will definitely have to go back and pick up One of Us is Lying. I do think I want to give that a go on audio, but we shall see. Up next, I read my second Adrian Chbosky book. Month prior, I read one of his fantasies, The Tiger and the Wolf. This month, I decided to try Shards of Earth, which is the first of his Shards of Earth series, is it a trilogy? And I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. This is a thought-provoking and immersive story that explores the consequences of human reliance on advanced technology and the blurred lines between human and machine. It's full of high stakes, found family, and it's set 80 years after Earth was destroyed by an alien enemy. This, as I mentioned, was my second novel by him, and it's such a stark contrast how he writes fantasy as opposed to how he writes sci-fi. So far I've enjoyed both, so I haven't found anything I really dislike, but it's almost like it's a different author. It's so strange how he can get in a complete different headspace to deliver, well, different content, you know. It's really interesting to see that. I'd love to know how he kind of psychs himself up and prepares to step into his fantasy worlds and step into his sci-fi world. Set up about the architect in particular, which was this kind of almost like godly entity, which is basically the character, so to speak, that is destroying these planets and these worlds. It was super enjoyable. I really enjoyed learning about that, and it reminded me of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. Whilst the familial bonds and the relationships between characters and the growth there of the crew in particular had me reminded of A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. So I liked that we had like the super sci-fi you know, details, like really high sci-fi, and then we had the more bring you back to earth, no pun intended, familial kind of, okay, I can connect with the characters, you know, and so it's not so intimidating. I feel like the narrator did such a fantastic job, absolutely bringing it even more to life. And yeah, it wasn't at all as intimidating as the cover made out to be. Up next, I've got a Christmas themed horror, and this is Secret Santa by Andrew Schaefer. I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars, and it's following Lucy after losing her last job, scores a senior editing position at the prestigious Blackwood Patterson under bizarre circumstances. As soon as she starts her new position, she becomes the target of cruel pranks by her co-workers, which reaches its peak at the Secret Santa exchange. This one was just okay for me. The thrill wasn't like super thrilling. I didn't find it to be very Moorish or super exciting or heart racing. The stakes were definitely high. It just didn't bring tension that it needed to bring, and the threat just didn't feel immediate or all-consuming, which is what you want, I think, in like a thriller or horror and mystery. It just, you know, it was just okay. I definitely liked the setting and the time period. It's set in the 80s, so there's lots of conversation of 80s horror becoming published and kind of being the it thing at the moment. So I did quite like that little like niche. I did have a quote from this one. It says, it's supposed to be anonymous, so is AA, but the first thing you do though is introduce yourself. I was like, yeah, damn. Made me think. Okay, next up, a really creepy, grotty, dirty little read that I absolutely adored, Mayfly by CJ Lead. I ended up giving this one a 5 out of 5 stars, and it was phenomenal. Mayfly works by day at the Disney park as Elsa, but by night she haunts the dive bars with a drink in one hand and a book in the other, with darkness on her mind. It's kind of like inspired by the American Psycho, Patrick Bateman, and there's definitely nods to it, like she mentions the character within the book, but oh my god, it was so phenomenal. I somehow rooted for Maeve, as unhinged and dangerous as she was. I just wanted her to get away with everything and have her happy ending, whatever that meant for her. The story itself was so freaking disturbing yet oddly captivating, like eggs. That's all I'm gonna say. Oh my god, even just thinking about it now is making me kind of queasy. But in saying that, I've had a hankering for eggs since reading this. I've been eating eggs quite a few times in the couple of weeks since reading. Anyway, eggs. What does that say about me? The ending absolutely destroyed me though. I was not expecting to go into this book feeling so much emotional distraught. Terror, yes. Unhinged depravity, yes. But on the verge of tears because I was sad and heartbroken? No, I wasn't expecting to feel that, but I did. So safe to say I'll definitely be picking up more of this author's works when more comes out. Next up, keeping to the theme of murder and death and all things dark and macabre, we have Suicide Forest by Jeremy Bates, and this one I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So it's a tale of mystery and horror set in Japan's ancient suicide forest, in a place that is easy to enter but for some impossible to leave. When bad weather prevents a group of friends from climbing Mount Fuji, they decide to spend the night in Okigahara instead, and legends quickly become true. The characters weren't at all likeable for me. It just felt like high school drama, and they were just whinging about the most unirrelevant things when you're lost in a wood and people are dying. You know, like, why are you talking about who's cheating on who and who's together and getting jealous? Like, I get the psyche and like you're isolated with just these people, but also like, come on, priorities. They did open up a little bit, and that's when I began to find it easier to empathize with them. I definitely would have preferred if it was less romance drama based, but I ended up appreciating more of this character study that we got. But it is definitely more like a character study than the horror that I thought it would be, but it's fine. I ended up liking it, but I just wish it was more horror, I suppose. I don't know. After that, I went into a memoir. This was My Thoughts Exactly by Lily Allen, and it's basically her thoughts on all things motherhood, matrimony, the music industry, and her life as a whole so far. This was such an insightful read. I've always liked Lily Allen's music. Like, I listened to her quite a lot in my pre-teens, I would say. I think that's when she was big, to be honest. Like, when her songs were coming out, that's when I was listening to her, but I've always liked them. I thought it was especially interesting to read this because I'd recently read the fiction book Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and some of the themes in My Thoughts Exactly was very on point with the music industry and things like that, and that's what the premise of Grown is about. So it was interesting to kind of get a non-fiction perspective, you know, mirroring the fiction perspective. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was good to read them back, well, not back to back, but as good as back to back for me personally. The audiobook, of course, was fantastic. Okay, and the last book that I'm going to be speaking about for this video is All the White Spaces by Ali Wilkes. This is kind of like psychological horror, historical fiction, and it is set in the wake of World War I. We're following Jonathan Morgan, who stows himself away on an Antarctic expedition and is determined to find his place in this world of men. Disaster strikes, something terrible is waiting to lure them out. This is not the full-on horror that you might expect. I went in thinking it was going to be like terrifying from the first, but you do get a lot of info dumping on like just the surrounding area, the ships, bits about the war, character studies, things like that. But I would say just go with it if you like kind of historical fiction. This might be a nice segue into the horror aspect, but if you're kind of horror going into this and you don't read a lot of historical fiction, it might be like, you know, this isn't what I picked up. I'm kind of like, I would say I'm still stepping my toes into both of those genres, so for me it worked. But it is definitely more of a fantastic character study of a group of isolated people that are fighting their own demons. The trans rep in this I was not expecting, but it inspired so many thoughts and questions about trans identity and the wider LGBT plus community within this period of time. Like, it was quite fascinating to have that perspective, and I really appreciated being in Jonathan's head whilst he was struggling with not only his own identity and finally being one of the men in his head, like finally this is happening, but also the grief and this kind of legacy and pressure that his brothers who passed in the war has sort of left on him, has impressioned on him, and he's carrying a lot with him, a lot of secrets, a lot of heavy burdens on his shoulders that maybe he might not necessarily have to carry, but you know, he wasn't at a point yet to shed that. And I just thought it was a fantastic portrayal. So yeah, I'm gonna leave this video here. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I managed to read a good few extra books by the end of the month as well, but as I say, I am in the process of moving, and a lot of the time and energy goes into that, doesn't it? So we shall see. That's why audiobooks come in handy. But yes, anyway, thank you so much for watching. I shall catch you in another video soon. Bye.
Give it time. I know that I'm not easy.